Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the internet, the Jon Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, Jon Campea. It's an honor and a privilege to have you guys joining us here today. Today's packed, guys. We've got to talk about the AT&T and Time Warner merger going through. Bryan Singer is, despite the fact that he was fired off the film, is going to be the director of credit for Bohemian Rhapsody. We got a whole stuff like Jon Bernthal stuff, a whole ton of stuff to talk about today. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into it right off the top. And this morning, a couple of new trailers have dropped. And one of the new trailers is for that of Disney's new film, Dumbo, being directed by Tim Burton. Now, look, I am not, everybody knows this, I'm not a Tim Burton fan. I don't hate Tim Burton, or I don't hate his films. There's even a couple of them I like, but in general, I'm not a fan of Tim Burton. I know most people are, that's totally cool, but I'm just not really a big fan of his particular sensibilities, but that's okay. Sometimes they work for me, sometimes they don't. As a result, I have not really been looking forward to Dumbo, because I saw what he did with Alice in Wonderland, and it sucked. So I have not been looking forward to this Dumbo film. So anyway, the trailer comes out, and I got to tell you, it charmed me. I mean, take that for what it's worth, but it charmed me. I was charmed by it. First of all, because I forgot a couple of things. Number one, I forgot Michael Keaton was in this damn film, which is really cool to see him in there. I forgot Danny DeVito was in this damn film. Also cool to see him there. I did remember that Colin Farrell's in there. I think, honestly, Colin Farrell is one of the most underrated actors in the business today. Like, I really think that. I think he's tremendously underrated. So that'll look good. Eva Green is in there as well, and she's amazing. But I'll tell you what, here's the part where the trailer really won me over. And it was just a teaser, but here's the part where it won me over. We all know Dumbo's the elephant that can fly. Like, we all know that. And you hear it, like, we are so desensitized by, you know, how much huge awe and wonder stuff is in our big blockbuster movies these days, right? Like, elephant that can fly, so what? I mean, we've got, like, Men of Steel who can lift mountains, and we've got this and we've got that. Like, an elephant that can fly, okay, whoopee, right? But the way this trailer was put together, I'm just being honest with you. When they set up that moment where Dumbo's rising on the platform, and you've got, like, Danny DeVito and Will Ferrell looking up at him, Colin Farrell, I should say, looking up at him, and then there's that moment where he jumps off and Dumbo's actually flying through the tent. I got chills. Like, in a day and an age when we have Captain Marvel coming, in an age where we have Ant-Man who can grow to 65 feet tall. When you hear a movie about, okay, a flying elephant, yeah, we all know Dumbo's the elephant. We know it. And yet somehow, when they hit that moment in the trailer, for me, I got chills. I felt that sense of awe and wonder that you're supposed to feel in a story like this, that I will be brutally honest, I did not feel they would be able to capture in this film. And yet they captured it just in the teaser trailer. So again, look, I don't know if the movie's going to suck. I thought the trailers to Alice in Wonderland were pretty good, and that movie ended up being a big steaming pile of garbage. But hey, credit where it's due. This trailer got me intrigued. It made me feel that sense of awe, that childhood sense of awe and wonder. All I can say is bravo. And if Tim Burton had any hand, well, I mean, obviously he directed that scene. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I got to give it a little bit more credit. We'll have to wait and see. I still don't forgive any of them for Alice in Wonderland. That was terrible. But hey, the trailer did a good job. I got to give credit where it's due. It did a good job. Now, speaking of new trailers, another new trailer off the top here that dropped this morning was that of The Nun. Of course, in the Conjuring universe, we've been expecting this. We've been expecting this trailer for a while. We knew it was coming. And what can you say? It is kind of what I was expecting. Now, that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. This is a little bit of a formulaic kind of horror motif. That's fine. We kind of knew what we were expecting. That's fine. It didn't give me anything we weren't expecting. That's fine. The question is, does it feel kind of creepy and does it feel kind of spooky? And you know what? I'll say yes. It was pretty creepy. I mean, when the one scene in the trailer, when they cross-dissolve from the painting of the nun to the face of the nun with the yellow Sith Lord eyes and all that felt pretty good. You know, the camera pans, there's nothing behind her, it comes back, now there's this nun outfit behind her. Kind of creepy. Okay, again, nothing spectacular, nothing super special, but it did hit the notes and it felt kind of creepy, so I give it credit for that. So yeah, full marks to the Nun trailer as well. Okay, last thing here in off the top that we did not get around to is this. So we've known for a little bit now that Wonder Woman was going to be, we heard Wonder Woman 84. So today we got the official word that the official title of the next Wonder Woman film is Wonder Woman 1984. But more important than that, we found out that it is official. Trevor is coming back Chris Pine is coming back as Steve Trevor. Trevor's back, ladies and gentlemen. Trevor is back. Now, for those of you who might be tempted to think, oh, maybe this is just a relative of his. Maybe this is just a lookalike and it's not actually him. Well, here's the thing. In a tweet, Patty Jenkins is the one who put this picture up. And she says in the tweet, "Welcome to Wonder Woman 1984, Steve Trevor." I mean, it's right there. She says in the tweet, it's him. And again, let's take a look at this picture one more time. It looks like a fish out of water, a time travel sort of thing. He's like in this 1980s mall, and he looks completely befuddled and completely confused. Now, we started talking about 6 months ago that we heard word that Steve Trevor was going to be back in this movie. Or Chris Pine was coming back. And there were a lot of different theories. Would he come back as Trevor? Would he come back as somebody else? Would he come back as a distant relative? Again, maybe she's playing games with us, but Patty Jenkins, the director of film, seems to be indicating that this is the one and the same character from the first film. Now, you know my thoughts on fake deaths. The thing is, DC hasn't gone back to that well nearly as many times as Marvel, so I'll cut DC a little bit of slack on doing the fake death thing, like bringing characters back and all that kind of stuff. But in this case, you needed Chris Pine. Chris Pine did most of the heavy lifting when it came to the acting in the first Wonder Woman film. And he and Gal Gadot actually had some pretty good chemistry on screen. I think you were going to face some problems if you didn't bring him back. So I think it's probably a good move for them to bring back. Now, I am going to wait patiently and see what their explanation is. Like, how do they explain he's back? How do you explain Chris Pine being back in this film without undermining the emotional impact of that moment when he sacrifices himself in the first Wonder Woman film? I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for now. Let's wait to hear what the explanation is. But I think it was probably a pretty good move that they brought him back because I think they need him. Okay, I'm sure you guys are going to have some more stuff about this you're going to want to talk about in the live questions part. We'll get to that part a little bit later in the show. But for now, let's get to all the other items going on in the world of movie news with today's Movie News Feed. First up, actor Jon Bernthal has quietly been amassing an impressive resume over the last few years. The star of the Netflix series Punisher and movies such as The Accountant, Baby Driver, and Fury is about to add another impressive title to his list, as Deadline is reporting that the actor is now in talks to join Matt Damon and Christian Bale in the movie Ford v Ferrari, the James Mangold-directed Fox drama about the battle between the two premier car makers to win Le Mans in 1966. Bernthal is in talks to play Lee Iacocca, a key marketing executive at Ford during the 1960s, and later a symbol of the resilience of the American auto industry when he headed Chrysler. Bernthal also has another high-profile film coming out later this year in the form of Widows, which is set to hit theaters in November. Jon Bernthal is putting together a really great little career without ever actually breaking through to that A-list star status. Like, it seems like there's this thing going on with him where most high-profile movies and high-quality movies are thinking, like, we need a solid actor to play this supporting role, and they all seem to want to go to Jon Bernthal. Like, we listed a couple of those films, but even like a smaller role like Wind River, that for the life of me, I still don't know why Wind River didn't get nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards, but that's another issue for another time. They brought him for the small role, made a huge impact, and that seems to be what Bernthal's becoming, a reliable, go-to, solid actor that you know you can hand him a supporting role and he will make a strong impact with it. Now, the role of Lee Iacocca, how big or how small will this role be in the film? I'm not really sure. Clearly, it's not one of the leads. That's Matt Damon and Christian Bale. Once again, Jon Bernthal playing second fiddle to other actors. I get it. But you know, the great character actor, Brian Dennehy, I remember he was talking about how, I still get a lot more work today than some supposed A-listers back in the 80s. And it's true. He's turned what a supporting character kind of career into a long, fruitful career, and maybe Jon Bernthal is going to be that as well. Now, who knows? Maybe at some point, Bernthal can break through and be handed some high-profile films that he's actually the lead actor of. If that's going to happen, if some studio will take a risk on him, who knows? But even if it doesn't happen, he is already known as one of the most reliable actors in Hollywood, and he's putting together a great career, and it's going to be really interesting to see him in a movie like this, playing off of, say, a Matt Damon and a Christian Bale. Next up, a lot of us are excited for the upcoming Queen and Freddie Mercury biopic, Bohemian Rhapsody, but a rather large question has been hanging in the air about who would get the official credit as the director of the film. As some of you will remember, director Bryan Singer was taken off of the film back in December after what the studio said were unexplained absences from the set. Singer argued that the studio refused to allow him time off to take care for an ill parent. In his place, Fox brought in Eddie the Eagle director Dexter Fletcher to finish filming. Fletcher, who was at one time attached to an earlier incarnation of the film, shot for about 16 days before the film wrapped. From The Hollywood Reporter, producer Graham King said the following: Bryan Singer is the credited director of the film. Basically, Bryan had some personal issues going on, he wanted to hiatus the movie to deal with them, and the movie had to get finished. That was what it came down to. It wasn't about reinventing the wheel. We needed somebody who would have some creative freedom, but work inside a box. Bohemian Rhapsody is set to open in theaters on November 2nd. And you know, this really is a no-brainer. Bryan Singer should be the credited director on this film. Now, I've already had some people writing to me on Twitter and saying, hey, wait a minute. How come Bryan Singer gets director credit on Bohemian Rhapsody when he didn't finish the film, but Lord and Miller don't get director credit on Solo and Ron Howard got it instead? Well, because they're two very, very different circumstances. In the situation of Bohemian Rhapsody, Bryan Singer pretty much finished shooting the film. There's just a little bit left to be filmed, and then what they did is they brought in Dexter just to finish off the last little bit to add to all the stuff that Bryan Singer had already shot. Therefore, when you sit down and watch the movie, the vast majority of what you're going to see in that film was directed by Bryan Singer. Therefore, he gets the credit. With the Solo situation, it was completely different. Yes, Lord and Miller did shoot like 75 to 80% of the film, but most of that stuff got scrapped, and Ron Howard basically came in and pretty much reshot the whole movie. I mean, not literally the whole movie, but essentially the whole movie. So that when you watch Bohemian Rhapsody, most of what you're seeing is Bryan Singer stuff. But when you watch Solo, most of the stuff you're seeing is not Lord and Miller stuff. It's actually Ron Howard. That's why Singer gets the credit and Lord and Miller didn't. That's why Ron Howard gets the credit and Dexter over here on Bohemian Rhapsody doesn't. Now, as a fan and as a casual observer, I've never really felt right about this whole thing. It's like, wait a minute, so he just had sick parents and you didn't want to let him go. Okay, I get it. You have 300 people employed on this movie. You don't want to put everybody on hold indefinitely while one guy goes to take care of some personal business. Okay, I get that. But it just always seems like there was more going on behind the scenes, and maybe we'll never know what it was, and maybe we don't even need to know what it was. Bottom line is this: Bryan Singer's getting the credit as the director, and since he did direct most of that film, he's the one who should be getting credit, so everything is as it should be. Next up, it may have taken a bit longer than expected, but yesterday it became official that the latest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Avengers Infinity War, has become only the fourth film in cinematic history to join the all-exclusive $2 billion club. The symbolic achievement also solidifies Infinity War as the fourth biggest box office film in history, behind only Avatar, Titanic, and Star Wars: The Force Awakens. The film will almost certainly finish its historic run in that position and is the undisputed #1 comic book movie of all time at the box office. We'll see if Avengers 4 can challenge that next year. And this is a great lesson in how not to jump the gun, because it was just a couple of weeks ago that I said, sometime this week, Avengers will cross the $2 billion mark. Well, that was actually a couple of weeks ago, so it did take a little bit longer than expected, but it did it. Avengers Infinity War joins the all-elusive $2 billion club, just the fourth. Put that in perspective. Think of all the thousands and thousands and thousands of films that have come out, and only 4 now have ever reached the $2 billion mark, Avengers Infinity War being one of those. Now, I remember a lot of us thought, me included, when it broke that opening weekend record, and it did so strong in its first couple of weeks, a lot of us thought it wouldn't have too much trouble also catching Star Wars: The Force Awakens for the #3 spot on the all-time box office list. That's obviously not going to happen. It's not going to catch that movie, but still, entering the $2 billion club is huge. But also significant for the MCU is the fact that their latest film is now their biggest film. This is the biggest film in the MCU history, and as we already mentioned, now the biggest box office film in comic book movie history. That's no small feat. Now, can Avengers 4 catch it? I mean, it's going to be challenging. A lot of people just think, oh yeah, it's automatic, it will. Don't jump the gun. There's a reason only 4 films in history has ever gotten to $2 billion. Will Avengers 4 do that as well? Well, let's call it what it is. Avengers 4 doesn't need to hit $2 billion to be a massive, massive success. But will it catch it? Well, we're going to have to wait and find out. But look, once again, this is a huge mark of validation for both Kevin Feige and Marvel and their strategy, and another big mark of validation for how they have managed the MCU up until this point. So, well done and congratulations to everybody over there. Next up, after a long court battle, AT&T has won a decisive victory in court, clearing the way for their $85 billion takeover of Time Warner, which also includes Warner Brothers Studios. From Variety, the ruling has tremendous implications for future media mergers, as public interest groups and Wall Street analysts predict that it will clear the way for greater consolidation and combinations between content and distribution. Comcast, for instance, is weighing a rival bid for many of the assets of 21st Century Fox, hoping to usurp the Walt Disney Company's agreement to purchase the media properties. The AT&T acquisition of Time Warner is now clear to be completed by June 20th. This ruling is huge on several levels. You know, first of all, AT&T now gets to complete the merger of Warner Brothers. That's great, or Time Warner, I should say, the parent company. So that's great. And there's a lot of things just by itself to talk about there. But the implications on what this could mean to the wider landscape are huge. Right in front of us is this whole stuff going on with Fox and Disney and Comcast. You know, one of the arguments that was made against Comcast and said one of the things that would stand in Comcast's way was the fear of the government stepping in and thinking there'd be a lot of antitrust stuff because of all the properties that Comcast already owns. That gave Walt Disney a clear head start. But now that the court has pretty decisively said and favored AT&T in this merger, like the report said, it kind of opens up the playing field a little bit and takes away some of those fears. This, I think, will embolden Comcast to really go in strong with a bid, knowing now that one of the hurdles in their way has been cleared out. Now, the other thing that this sort of opens up is the fact that whoever ends up winning this bidding war between Disney and Comcast to get Fox, it seems to suggest that it's going to be an easier time getting it cleared by the government officiating boards, right? Like now that AT&T won their case, it should make things a little bit, not completely clear, but a little bit easier for either Comcast or Disney to get this deal finalized. The drama is still just starting, though. Fox is going to have a shareholders vote in the upcoming months, so we'll see which way they go. So who's going to end up owning the Fox stuff, Disney or Comcast? The picture's still unclear. And finally, as most of you know, the new Aquaman film is set to hit theaters in December, but an early cut of the film has now been screened for the executives at Warner Brothers, and the bosses have been saying things like James Wan has done an incredible job, and Geoff Johns said the following: "The underwater stuff has never been executed like this before. The visual effects shots coming in are just beautiful. James can switch modes from horror to big, bright, colorful action to really emotional scenes. He's so able to hit all these different genres." However, another very interesting comment came from the group in the form of Shazam and Aquaman producer Peter Safran, who seemed to suggest that the DCEU has not been on the right path up until this point, when he said the following: "Aquaman has got the great action you expect. It's got a lot of great humor. It works on so many levels. It's a testament to James' unique vision. I think it's an extraordinary step in DC Universe that sets it on the right path." Aquaman hits theaters on December 21st. Now, this is a screening that actually did happen. It's verified by Entertainment Weekly. And sure, we hear a lot of the executives saying, "We love it. James Wan did a great job. Bravo." I mean, what else do we expect the studio executives to say about their own movie? However, this comment by Aquaman's producer, who's also the producer of Shazam, is rather interesting. By coming out and saying, this Aquaman movie will set the DC Universe on the right path. That obviously suggests that he believes that the DCEU has not been on the right path. And it kind of becomes the first time somebody on the high producer and executive level of Warner Brothers seems to be saying publicly, our DCEU up until this point has not been on the right path. Now, normally you'd say things like, oh, that's kind of refreshing honesty. But honestly, I think this is something the dude should not have said. Why say something like that? Why throw the other producers or directors, the filmmakers of Warner Brothers and the DCU up to this point under the bus? It's one thing for us, fans and everything, to say we don't think they've been on the right path. But for the producer of Aquaman to come out and make a suggestion that the DCU has gotten it wrong so far and now we're putting it on the right path, maybe that's something he shouldn't have said. But let's look at it positively for a second. He clearly likes the way this film has turned out. Obviously, the Warner Brother bosses like the way it's turned out. We've heard nothing but good things about the footage they've shown of Aquaman from CinemaCon, and we're hearing good things out of Cine Europe about them showing the trailers to some fans there. We expect to see the Aquaman trailer drop here shortly. So that's all good and that's all positive. But once again, it's not nice to see a company throwing other people in the same company under the bus. And this sort of acknowledgement saying, oh, the DCU hasn't been on the right path so far, that might be true. But you're not the person to say that. Just talk about how proud you are of your film without throwing the other films under the bus. That's just how I see it. And that'll do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed. And now you are all caught up to date on all the things going on in the world of movies. I told you it was a packed day today, right? Like a whole ton of stuff. All right. For now, though, let's get over to the main topics today. Of course, the main topics are submitted by you guys. Now, how do you guys submit a topic to be on the Jon Campea Show? It's real simple. You just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line. That way I know you're sending in an email for the show. And keep the emails to 90 words less. Of course, once again, john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line and keep your emails to 90 words or less. All right, let's get to the first email today. And the first email today comes to us from Ki-Seon Peck, who writes, I watched Deadpool 2 at a 4:30 showing opening weekend, and the theater was pretty much silent. I watched Solo opening weekend at 1:30 and also was pretty silent. I noticed 6 p.m. evening shows or later have great crowd reactions. Why is that? And you know what, Key? I have never really thought about it, but the moment I read your email, it completely struck me as true. I've had that same experience. That, you go to like a matinee kind of film and the audience isn't nearly, regardless of the movie you're in, there are some exceptions, obviously. But for the most part, you go to like a late afternoon, a matinee film, there doesn't seem to be that same energy and hype for a movie as there are when you go to the later evening shows. I'm not really sure what the sociology behind that is. Like, I don't know if it's like, well, in the evening, it's the end of the day, so you feel like it's an event, you're going out to the movie, this is your big evening thing, blah, blah, blah. And maybe at a matinee, you just feel like you're killing some time and going out to a matinee. I mean, I don't know. Like, again, I'm not sure what the sociology behind it is. But I was fascinated by your email because it instantly struck me the same. I was like, you know what? I can think of a number of times. Like, even Avengers Infinity War, I think the screening that I went to that had the least reaction was like a 3:00 in the afternoon screening. And that's the one that had the least reaction. The ones I went to in the evenings, huge reactions. Matinee one, not so much. I think probably the same thing is true of Deadpool, because I went to a matinee of Deadpool once, and probably the least reaction out of the audience out of all the screenings that I had. Again, I'm not sure what the sociology behind it is, so I have no answers to it. But I just wanted to acknowledge it and say, yeah, man, I've kind of noticed the same thing as well. Maybe you guys noticed the same thing? Like, again, it's not always true. I've been to some matinees where the audience gave a huge reaction. But now that I think about it, more times than not, I definitely get bigger reactions out of audiences when I go see evening screenings as opposed to early screenings, like afternoon screenings. So I don't know, maybe there's something. If you guys have any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear your theories. Jump into the comment section below and let me know what you think. Okay, let's go on to the next email. And the next email today comes to us from Jerrod Isbell, who writes, Hey, John, I hope you're doing well. I am doing well, Jerrod. Thank you so much. It's no secret that Warner Brothers DCEU has yet to be able to find its footing both in front of and behind the camera. It was just announced that Geoff Johns is stepping down from his role as COO. Actually, I think it was Chief Creative Officer. It's CCO, I believe. What does this mean for the future of the DCEU? And should fans who have been sticking with WB since the beginning be worried? What's your thoughts? Well, we've talked about this a little bit over the last couple of days, actually, about the move. I'm not really surprised. I wasn't surprised by the move at all. Like we said, we've got a new sheriff in town in the DCEU, right? Hamada is now running the DCEU. You would expect that over time, he would change the leadership culture. It's not just him. Like, DC Entertainment's president also stepped down about a week or a couple of weeks ago. And now we've got Geoff Johns stepping down and all that kind of stuff. Now remember, and by the way, Geoff Johns isn't disappearing. He also, once he stepped down, he signed a content creation deal with Warner Brothers. So he's going to be writing and producing. Geoff Johns is going to be doing what Geoff Johns does best, creating content. That's what he's going to be focused on. So don't worry about that too much. But with a new sheriff in town, what brand new leaders tend to like to do is change the leadership culture of the thing they're leading. And they like to bring in people they know and they trust to set their direction that they have. As far as should Warner Brothers and DCU fans be worried, here's the thing. When your hockey team doesn't make the playoffs, don't be worried about them changing coaches because, I mean, how much worse can things get? I'm giggling and laughing, but I laugh because I laugh when I'm sad a little bit. Look, when Justice League comes out, which should have been your crown jewel, it should have been the film to compete with Avengers, and it is the lowest grossing film out of all the films you've done. I mean, honestly, how much worse can things get? Should we be worried that he's gone? Well, things haven't exactly been spectacular with him there. And that's not all Geoff Johns' fault, by the way. So let's not throw him under the bus. It's not exactly his fault. But Hamada wants to probably create a new leadership culture, a new leadership structure, a new leadership direction in line with where he wants to take things. And I still think it's going to be a full year or two before we get a really clear picture about which way Hamada is taking things. It's not an instant gratification thing. We're not going to find out the answers to this overnight. But no, I don't think fans should be worried because you can only go up from here. I think we should be giving Hamada the opportunity to come in, do all the things he wants to do, lay the groundwork that he wants to lay, and see where he takes things, and to be optimistic. And look, again, going back to Aquaman, I mean, things sound good, right? So let's hold on to that and see where we go from there. Okay, guys, with all that out of the way, we got just a couple of minutes left here to take some of your live questions, so let's jump over right now. Today was a packed day, so we're running a little bit late. But let's go over and take your live questions now. And we're going to start off with King of the Hills 34, who writes, happy 15 years of punditry. I think that's today. Actually, my 24th. Hold on a second. Let me just double check that. Let me open up my calendar here, because I wrote it down on a calendar just to make sure I had it right. Yes, July 24th is going to mark my 15th anniversary of doing movie punditry online. And it marks the 15th anniversary of my very first movie blog post back on July 24th, 15 years ago, the 2003. Woo, it's been a while. So not quite the anniversary yet, but thank you for throwing that in there anyway. Miles Pardo writes, the World Cup is coming to Canada. Are you excited? Well, I'm not that big of a soccer fan. I only watch during the World Cup and only when Italy's in it. So that's why I'm probably not going to watch it this year. So if Italy's in it, then yes, I'll be excited. Let's see. C. Murray writes, where's the solo companion video? I explained that a couple days ago. We're running behind on it. It's going to come in the next couple of days. So hold on tight. Manuel Fernandez writes, I did a photo op with Elizabeth Henstridge. Oh, she's the girl who plays Simmons in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on Saturday at Indie PopCon, but the photographer had to refill the film, so I was the only one. To have a short conversation with her as we waited. That's always nice, isn't it? She seems delightful, actually. She seems like she's really delightful. I've bumped into her at a couple of premieres and things like that. She's actually seems kind of sweet. Luna Comics writes, do you think Steve Trevor had a relative and that relative had a son that looked like Steve Trevor? Well, here's the thing. In Patty Jenkins' post, where she shared the picture, she specifically says, welcome to Wonder Woman 1984, Steve Trevor. I mean, and then again, just she shared it with the caption, welcome to 1984, Steve Trevor. So it seems like Patty Jenkins is letting us know this is Trevor. This is the same character from the last movie. So how they're going to explain that? Well, let's just wait and see. But it seems like that's the one and the same character. Okay. C. Murray for Life writes, where did he go? There he goes. C. Murray for Life writes, why do people still call it the DCEU? It's not. I've refused to call it that from the start. I call it the DCU. Even Warner Brothers confirmed it's not the DCEU. You know what? I said the same thing right at the beginning. I said, I'm not going to call it the DCEU. That's stupid. Let's just call it the DCU. Just call it the DCU. But eventually I started calling it that too, just because everybody else did. And I should. I'm embarrassed that I did. I shouldn't have. I should have just stuck with DCU. I agree with that. I don't know why, but that's just what everybody's come to know it as. So since everybody comes to know it as that, like you may know a guy named Reginald, right? You may know a guy named Reginald. And then you go visit him at the city he lives in, but everybody there refers to Reginald as Reg. They just call him Reg. So if you go around asking where Reginald is, people aren't going to know who you're talking about. So just for the sake of making sure you're on the same page, you'll start calling him Reg too. And I think that's been the thing with the DCEU. Since everybody calls it the DCEU, we all just kind of got on board and called the DCEU, but I shouldn't have. I should have stuck with the DCEU because you're absolutely right. Let's see. KW Garrett, 83 writes, big leak from Reeves' Batman script. Waynes are confronted by robber and Thomas Wayne calls 911 with a Sprint phone, but shitty service doesn't work and they all die. Yeah, now that AT&T is in charge of Warner Brothers, you just could see. Don't give them any ideas, man. Just don't give them any ideas because you just might see that happen. 3C Films writes, got to see an early screening for Tag and I absolutely loved it. So why would Warner Brothers hold the embargo as if it was a bad movie? Thoughts? You know what? I can't even remember when the embargo is. I got to get my review for that damn thing up. I think the review embargo lists tomorrow. Yeah, I saw Tag like 2 weeks ago, and I really enjoy it. I really like it. Not the best comedy I've ever seen, nothing like that, but it's really quite good. And it's got some emotional oomph as well. I don't know if they thought it was any good. Like, I remember I saw Tag, and then I asked a Warner Brothers rep. I was talking to a Warner Brothers rep that I know, and I'm like, hey, saw Tag, is the review embargo up? Can we just put a post review? And they're like, no, the review embargo is like the 14th or something. I'm like, this is a good movie. Why are you hiding the reviews for it? But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they didn't think it was all that good, but I think it's pretty good, actually. I think it's a good comedy. Ryan Irwin Dell writes, Hollywood Reporter says Reeves finally turned in a screenplay a few weeks ago about a younger Batman. Thoughts? Yeah, I heard that. I don't know that they've been able to verify that, but that's what they're saying they're hearing. Still like 4 months overdue of when it was supposed to be in there, but if it is a younger Batman, that just once again confirms that he has like no plans on using Ben Affleck in the film, which is something that we've all heard. Again, I don't think that automatically rules out that Warner Brothers will use that one last film that they have a contract with Ben Affleck for to use him in one more film and just maybe say this one is a separate universe, much like the Joker thing is a separate universe. So we'll have to, now some of you might say, but John, Matt Reeves said last year that it would be in the DCEU. Yeah, well, and Ben Affleck said at Comic-Con last year, I'm Batman forever. I'll crawl. I'll be a monkey for Matt Reeves to be in Matt Reeves' Batman. And look how that turned out. So let's not worry about what these people have said before, because clearly it's not worth the ink it's written with. But, I mean, hey, look, there's still a lot of possibilities here. And maybe some bad ones, but some really good ones too. So let's kind of see how this all shakes itself out here. Let's see. Mr. Film writes, Michael Scott as your dad or Leslie Knope as your mom? Oh, Leslie Knope as my mom. Yeah, for sure. I would totally go Leslie Knope as my mom. I would love Michael Scott as a next door neighbor. I don't think I'd want Michael Scott as my dad. Oscar Villanueva just sends in super chat. Thank you, Oscar. Grand Drew 10 writes, thoughts on First Man trailer. Loved it. So excited. I mean, look, maybe I shouldn't say I loved it. It showed exactly what we were expecting to see. I mean, it's not like it threw us any curveballs or anything like that. But it is what we were expecting it to see. And what I'm expecting to see, I'm very excited about. So I enjoyed it. Talked about it on the show last week, I think, or the other day. Again, nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing, no curveballs, no big surprises, but it was a solid trailer. I really liked it. I'm very excited about this film. ZOMG Ruler writes, if Aquaman makes under Ant-Man, I'll agree to reboot. Well, Aquaman will probably make under Ant-Man, but I don't think that's a fair assessment. Look, you should be agreeing with me anyway, but don't change your mind. If you don't agree with me, that's cool, but don't change your mind just because it may not make as much as Ant-Man. Ant-Man is coming off of a huge MCU role with Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, and that's what's rolling into Ant-Man. That's a huge advantage over Aquaman, which the last DCEU movie was the lowest box office gross of them, and it's going to be almost a year in between. So, look, Ant-Man already has a big advantage. So, if you disagree with me, that's cool, but I would suggest, I can't believe I'm arguing with you to tell you to keep disagreeing with me. Keep disagreeing with me. Don't change your mind just because Ant-Man makes more than Aquaman. Like, let's just take what Aquaman makes and judge it on that. Look, if Aquaman makes $500 million, I think you count that as a win. Don't compare it. Don't judge whether Aquaman is successful based on what some MCU film does. Judge whether Aquaman is successful on its own merits and on the merits of the rest of the DCEU. Because look, if Justice League only makes $650 million, and Aquaman by himself gets really close to that number, and say makes $550 million, that's not bad. That's not bad. And it doesn't change it from not being bad just because Ant-Man makes $680 million, or whatever Ant-Man ends up making. Again, I just think that Ant-Man has too many advantages over it. We shouldn't be comparing or judging the success of Aquaman based on what Ant-Man does. Judge the success of Aquaman based on what Aquaman does and what it does in relation to its own DCEU, not what some MCU film is doing. So keep disagreeing with me. Don't change your mind. Keep disagreeing with me until something else changes your mind. Okay. Let's see here. History Soup writes, with Kidding and Dark Crimes, Carrie coming back. Oh, I hope so. Yeah, because that little... there's that one trailer that just dropped of him as the children. So it reminded me a little bit of Death to Smoochie. I mean, it's going to be a completely different film than Death to Smoochie. I don't know. I hope so. I mean, look, I even love Jim Carrey in The Incredible Burt Wonderstone. I thought he was great in The Incredible Burt Wonderstone. Now, Incredible Burt Wonderstone wasn't a fantastic movie, but I thought Jim Carrey was the best thing about that movie. And I love seeing Jim Carrey and stuff. Okay, last question of the day. And by the way, guys, if you've sent in live questions, I don't have time to get around to it. Don't worry. I'm going to put them in tomorrow morning's companion video, so it'll be up then. All right. Last question of the day. The Comic Boss writes, hey, John, my girlfriend and I watch daily. Keep up the filthy. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you're here along for the ride, talking movies with all of us movie fans along the way. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the Jon Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. Listen, guys, the most important part of all this is what do you guys have to say about any or all these topics? Jump down to the comments section below and leave me your thoughts on any or all the topics that we discussed here today. And listen, guys, while you're here, do me a favor. If you enjoy watching my program, do me a quick solid. Head on over to www.patreon.com/Jon Campea. Get all the information there about what it means to be a Patreon supporter of the Jon Campea YouTube channel. Find out how being a Patreon supporter keeps these shows on the air. And of course, what benefits there are to being a Patreon supporter. And then maybe you'll want to become a Patreon supporter too, which would be awesome if you did. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today's show. Don't forget, I'll be back a little bit later this afternoon with Open Mic. So make sure you come back and join me at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That'll do it for me. My name's Jon Campea, and until our next video, bye-bye.